Hello and welcome to our talk on student groups, how student groups are adapting as part of our Let's Chat live event. Please do be aware that this session is being recorded for future use. Without further ado though, I'll hand over to Emma who can get started with the talk.
Hi everyone, hopefully you can hear me. Thank you for coming along today to how student groups are adapting as part of Let's Chat Live, happening across today, hosted by Leicester Students' Union staff, officers and volunteers. I hope you've been finding the sessions informative so far and have booked on to more this afternoon. As we only have 20 minutes today, it's going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour of this topic, but if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with the department at unionactivities@le.ac.uk. So let's get started with some introductions. I'm Emma, Sports and Societies Deputy Manager at the Students' Union. Alongside the rest of the Activities and Volunteering Department, I work to support over 1,400 committee members and 234 societies and sports clubs delivering their activity. As a department, we also work to deliver large-scale events such as Activities Fair and Give It a Go, alongside ensuring all of our student groups are COVID-19 compliant and safe. So what are we covering today? We're going to be looking at an overview of student groups at Leicester before moving on to some examples of how our societies have been adapting, how to get involved in person and online, why you should get involved, and also how to start your own student group. Whether you are a mentee or a mentor, I'm sure you can agree that this year has been predictably unpredictable. To give you an overview, in March 2020, all in-person society and sports clubs events were suspended for the foreseeable future in line with the first national lockdown. This meant that many new committees had to start their time off in office by cancelling balls, varsity, and many more of their big events. Not ideal. Over the summer, whilst many places began to open up and start planning face-to-face freshers' fairs and events, Leicester endured over 3 months of additional restrictions, which led to our very first virtual Give It a Go and Activities Fair. Over the last 2 months, we have seen more and more group activities being authorised to take place, following review by the University Safety Services Department, to the extent that we were able to facilitate our first music rehearsals and indoor sport was finally allowed to return. This takes us to last Thursday, where all society and sports clubs were suspended again, in line with England's national lockdown. Kind of just a summary of 2020. It's safe to say that as a department and for all of our societies and sports clubs, we have charted unknown territory and overcome many barriers, changes, and sometimes disappointment. As a result, adapting is absolutely key for success this year. And as a department, we have been floored and amazed by the innovation, drive, and creativity of our student leaders. There's so many groups we could give a shout out to in this section for their virtual events, and we have listed a few on this slide, from the SUMA's online medics fair, American Football Virtual Varsity, LU Theatre's new podcast, book club running online sessions, esports and gaming freshers, dance sport and dance performance running end of years awards online, chamber choir doing online rehearsals, and many more. These events all help to create a sense of community and bring like-minded students from across the campus together to get through one of the most difficult academic years I've known. I'd like to pose a question to the audience for a moment, just so you can have a think. What worries would you have when moving all of your society activities online? Bit of a sneak preview there. So as it turns out, it's a lot harder to engage people online than it is in person, as it's really not the same as somebody coming naturally across your event or on campus at a fair. This led to many of our groups having to innovate in new areas, including social media and creating brand new online communities. A lot of these events that you can see on the presentation were only possible for our committee members assessing the goals of their society or sports club against the wants and needs of their members. For example, would people be up for attending an event in the evening, or would a daytime session be now be more appropriate with the introduction of Ignite and a more blended learning approach? Would people have the software required? For many things, you already need a Netflix or an Amazon subscription. Or for some of our, such as yoga, did participants actually have enough room in their living spaces to take part? Additionally, many of them assess the viability of platforms, from Instagram Live to Discord to Teleparty and more. For many of our committee members, they've never used platforms like this, and it became crucial to make these online forums a safe space to engage with others, and along with clear codes of conduct and feedback areas. Granted, not all activities translated easily to a virtual setting. After all, not everyone was prepared to go to the lengths me and my partner went to. Our passion is climbing, and after all the climbing walls shut in March, we adapted by building a climbing wall in our spare room. I really wouldn't recommend it, but it is a great space, and we still have it up today. That brings us back to the very start of the presentation. Adapting is key to success. To ensure that in-person activities could return where possible, over the summer, all of our student leaders undertook a process of risk assessing their activity and producing COVID-19 risk assessments in line with the Students' Union guidance. This often meant that they had to completely reshape how they were going to work. For example, dance sport classically involves two people partner dancing. That wasn't possible anymore unless people were from the same household. As well, a lot of new test and trace guidelines were introduced and registers as well, alongside each society having a maximum capacity of 15 for in-person events, while sports clubs depended on individual national governing body guidance. Needless to say, the roles of committee members transformed drastically between election and actually running events this year. They've also thought about how to prioritise particular areas of activity for an in-person setting. For example, a talk by an external visitor in any other academic year hosting a lecture theatre to maybe 100 people. That was more suited to a Zoom call or a hybrid in-person and virtual approach to be accessible by both students who were possibly isolating, those that didn't come back to Leicester, or those who would like to attend even after the 15 capacity had been reached. So now that I've covered what events have been taking place, I want to go through how and why you should get involved. I'll start off with the how. Even if England is in lockdown, there is always something going on. All of our societies and sports clubs have been running online events where possible over the last few months, which means even if you have to isolate, or maybe you've gone home for the rest of term, you can still get involved with a whole range of activities using your laptop or phone over Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Discord, or whatever platform the groups have used. Some of the top activities I've seen have been games of Amongst Us, Netflix watch parties, pub quizzes, escape rooms, and even murder mystery parties. For many of these, there's no additional cost for getting involved either. To find out more about the different events, I'd strongly recommend having a look at our What's On page on the Students' Union website. In terms of in-person events, we're still waiting for further guidance from the government and university on when these can resume again. We hope in the activities and volunteering department, as much as you guys, that it will be as soon as possible, as we miss seeing societies and student leaders on campus. However, when allowed and when safe to do so, we will always work to facilitate face-to-face society activity, even if there needs to be additional restrictions. And that's one thing I wanted to reassure you all of. This may mean that you have to buy a ticket from the union website, or maybe there's some new social distancing measures, or maybe it's in a location that you wouldn't normally associate with that student group. For example, quite a lot of our music groups will be using the Students' Union Square instead of some of the smaller rooms in other areas. But one thing for sure is that it's never too late to get involved. A lot of people think that Active Fair in September is the only time to get started with a group, but that's just not the case. Most of our societies and sports clubs run Give It a Go or taster sessions throughout the year for you to get a taste of their activity before you want to commit to a long-term membership. And if you want to find out more about them, you can always drop them a message on their Instagram, where most of them are very active, or at their Students' Union email address, which you can find at www.leicesterunion.com/opportunities/societies. But why should you get involved? To start off, it's a fantastic way to meet people from across the university who share your interests and hobbies. And if you're a first year, you can meet people outside your live and learn bubble. This can happen even if you can't do your hobby in person at the moment. For example, maybe if you're interested in football or another sport, it might be worth joining the associated club to see if anyone else supports your favorite team, or maybe an athlete, or just has general similar interests. Being part of a society or sports club is also an amazing way to boost key transferable skills that employers look for, from organisation, teamwork, and communication. It also helps you stand out from the crowd, from everyone else that has a similar degree. I know when I go to interviews, when I interview for this role, I talked a lot about my society and what I did, and it helped me stand out and be memorable, or at least I hope so. If you aren't sure which group to join, there's a number of things we'd recommend. If you're a mentor, think about the societies you joined throughout your time at university and how and why you would recommend these to your mentees. If you're a mentee, visit the SU website and have a look through some of our student pages and see what takes your fancy. And if you can't find a group that's a perfect fit to you, why not start your own? All you need to get started is a minimum of 3 committee members across the roles of President, Treasurer, Secretary and Wellbeing Inclusion Ambassador. And if you're struggling to find people for these roles, we recommend advertising to the wider student body using social media, as long as any accounts that are created are clearly not affiliated to the SU or the University of Leicester. If you want to start your own group, there are a few things you should consider. First of all, make sure it's unique and that there's no other group on our website that is anyway similar to it. Think about whether your group idea will also create a sense of community within its members and what you can do to ensure it will work in the long term. And also think about own time commitments. How busy are you in your degree? What time do you have free? It's always important to consider. In the application, you will also be asked, there we go, asked a few questions as well, such as the name of your group. We'll ask for a brief description, the category you want to get involved, be part of, such as common interest, academic, and more. And the aims of your group, your planned activities, and your committee members. That just helps the approval panel get an idea of how the Students' Union can support you in the future, and also know what you're going to get up to. So to summarise, even in a pandemic, there's never been a better time to join a society or sports club. Get involved, find your community, enhance your time here at the University of Leicester. Thank you for listening to this talk. And now I'm going to open up the floor to any questions.
Thanks, Emma. That was really interesting. So we have got a couple of questions for you. I know we haven't sort of like talked about these beforehand as well, so apologies if they're a little tricky, some of them. But I suppose the first one is that we are coming up to that time of year now where student group committee elections are coming up. So do you have any advice that you'd give to someone who's maybe thinking about running for a position like social sec, where it's going to be so hard to predict what they'll be able to organise in the year ahead?
Yeah, of course. So one thing I'd always say to everyone is definitely think about being a committee member. It's a fantastic way to enhance your skills and also to learn a lot more about the Students' Union and the university community as well. So going back to the question, what the first thing I'd recommend if you're thinking about it is talk to the current committee members, see how they found the year, what they'd recommend doing. Have a look as well, talk to the Students' Union, talk to the Activities and Volunteering Department if you're worried about anything. But also having a look outside your own student group or sports club. Have a look about what other societies are doing, maybe for their socials, even looking further afield to other universities. That's always helpful. So for example, maybe you'll see if you're running for social secretary, maybe you'll think, right, maybe one thing we do always as a group is we always have a end of term social. We have a Christmas meal. It'd be fantastic if we can do this in person, but if we can't, how could I move this online? So for example, maybe it's that you have an hour or so on Teams and you recommend everyone brings some food and that kind of thing, and you meet and you chat instead. So I guess it's one of those things of approaching the role with an open mind in terms of this pandemic is a new experience for all of us, and we can't predict how the next year will pan out. But making sure that you're flexible and thinking, okay, well, if I can do it in person, that's fantastic, amazing. I can make sure people are socially distanced, or maybe we can do something that's at capacity of 15, depending on what the rules are at that time. But also think, what have I enjoyed doing for an online socials recently? Like, what have I maybe what have you done with your friends over lockdown period? So for example, for my group of friends, we've done quizzes, we play a lot of like tabletop simulator because we like playing board games, all that kind of thing, and how you can apply that to your manifesto and that kind of thing as a society member.
Great answer, Emma. Thanks. That's real good food for thought for anyone who might be thinking about running for any position, really. The other question I have, just while we've got a little bit of time left, is you mentioned about like Welcome Week and the Opportunities Fair being online, and we're also heading into January, of course, which is the time when a lot more people sort of start to join student groups, whether they be coming from abroad or whether it's just people pick it as a time. You know what? Now's the time for me to join. I suppose the question is, how can groups engage their new members and sort of integrate them into their group along with their existing members so they can start forging those strong friendships?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one thing we'd always say is think about your experience when you first joined your student group. Like, were you approached, were you spoken to on a one-to basis? Did the committee members, when you joined, ask like what your hobbies were, what you were interested in, what degree you were studying? It's kind of help. It's creating that like specialized experience. Like even if it's in a big Zoom call or something like that, it's maybe reaching them out to them one-on-one, being like, "Hi, I'm." Excuse me, for example. "Hi, I'm Emma. I work in activities and volunteering. Like it's great to see that you're here today. Like what brought you to our group?" Like using some just putting them so they have a connection with you as well, which is always really helpful. And they have someone to go to for any feedback or that kind of thing. I think as well, like one of the key things is making sure that you're choosing a range of events for people to get involved with as an introduction to your group. So maybe if you're part of a group that maybe you have to have some pre-existing knowledge or skill, or even if you don't, maybe think about all of like how you can really welcome it out up yeah, open it up to beginners who maybe have never got involved with your student group's activity before, and maybe going through like maybe what an average year looks like for your group, maybe some things that you did in semester one, and also identifying areas for them to get involved with. So maybe you're a campaigning group and you have a big campaign coming up and there's loads of different roles. Maybe there's some people doing some publicity, there's some people doing logistics, maybe some people looking at how we can engage on social media. Maybe find out where they fit in that and get them connected with more people. And like in a big team setting, if you're having a online meeting or that kind of thing, reaching out and being like, what do you think about this? Or bringing them actively to conversation instead of passively hoping that they'll get involved. I hope that kind of answers it.
Yeah, I love that point about sort of taking a proactive approach. Thank you, and thank you so much for talking to us and taking the time to let us know about all the stuff that's going on with student groups. I will stop the recording now.